think what we're really in the midst of is complete lack of personal responsibility on many individuals, and and it's not really their fault because, frankly, they just don't know how to take responsibility, and so there's a lot of finger pointing going on, and that's because we haven't learned how to prioritize our lives appropriately. There's a lot of information, right? And so you get overwhelmed with information, or I get overwhelmed with information, and so you can only like look at so much. So, well, what are you going to look at, you know? And so that's a process of prioritization. Well, how do you prioritize, you know? And well, we all prioritize our days differently because we look through different lenses, right? We have different value structures, we have different worldviews, and there's no exception to that, you know? So like that's the definition of a religion, essentially, because you're practicing whatever it is that you value, which is your worldview, which is what everybody has. Now, you may say that you're secular, but you're still practicing a value set, right? And so maybe you worship the state, if you will, because you think that that's where all power resides, you know. But we're all subject to something greater than ourselves because we're limited to that worldview, and that worldview is incomplete because we don't know it all. So that's what we're trying to figure out. So why is that a problem? Well, people are not knowing how to prioritize. So, well, we all make up lists. So what I find interesting, and the reason that I'm making this video, is that I think what God is doing presently is using the drunks and the addicts of the world to teach the world how to face their fears and be responsible, because it used to be passed down through the traditions, but people have lost the understanding of what these religions were talking about. And so what's been reinterpreted new in the new sense and in the contemporary language is caught up in the 12 steps, which is, and the 12 traditions, which has been passed down to all these different 12 steps program. And what we see is, well, Jesus said, you know, those that are sown into the vine, you know, then you'll see them bear fruit. And so what that means is those that are willing to lay down their lives, in the sense that they've asked themselves what their life is worth laying down for. Not that we're not scrambling. When you come to the end of yourself, and we've all come to the end of ourself in some way, shape, or form, when you get your ass handed to you, then you have to turn that over, right? And it becomes not about getting as much as you look at it and go, damn, you know, like, you know, what is that all there is to life, you know, is getting and acquiring, you know? And you know, if that's all there is, then it is there is no morality, there is no purpose, there is no meaning, unless that acquiring is to somehow benefit somebody else. And that's exactly the idea. And so it's not a bad thing that we want to acquire things, but it's why we're trying to acquire those things. It's just like tools, just like money is a tool, you know. It's like if your goal is to get more money, well, I forget who it was that asked, you know, well, how much money is enough? And they said just a little bit more, you know. Well, because you always want more money. But so when you look at like, well, what are you trying to do with the money? Then, well, maybe you want more in that too, but it's been in something that's going to be beneficial for people, right? So then the more becomes a way of creating money to do that service. And so we end up transforming and transmuting that energy where we want to acquire into something that benefits all of us. But it comes with this whole idea that you have to be able to stand on your own and take care of yourself first. So that's like, It's I think we've, as a society, presently speaking, with these mass thing, is that we've gone too far in the side of thinking about others, in the sense that we're neglecting our own sovereignty. And that's why I say, be true to yourself wherever you're at, and whatever it is that your truth is. Ask yourself what that is, and be true to that, because it's incomplete. I guarantee it's incomplete, but if you nail it down as best you can, then you can. That's your definition of God, right? Your definition of reality, as best you can see fit. But then you'll see how it doesn't line up, and I think that's why people don't want to do it. But once you do that, then you can see how there's a greater reality, and so then that's how we get going on the process of growth, and we can grow with each other. But we have to respect each other's process of doing that as well. It's not up to me to force where I'm at in my journey on you, because I've been in many different phases. And so where I'm at is not, but there are certain universals that have been through that whole process, and that is that I had to do certain things. And so I'm going to assume that it's the same for everybody else, in the sense that you've got to do the work, you've got to step up to the plate, and and I'm here to facilitate whoever it is that wants to do that genuinely, because I think we're here to help each other out. But I think we also, when people aren't sincere and they haven't really looked at it, they waste people's time. And well, that's fine, just go do what you got to do, but like, that's why I think we got to be honest where we're at, and so that's what scripture says, I wish you were either cold or hot, but because you're lukewarm, I'll spew you out of my mouth. Like, it's not a fact that you're either right or wrong, it's just own where you're at, and know that there's more to the story. I think there's some humility in that, and it's difficult because we want to act like we know, because that's what kind of action is, right? It's our best bet, but the reality is we don't know everything. And so that's not a moral relativism either, where like there's no stance on anything. There's certain things that we're pretty secure on, but we should, if we are being honest about our worldview and things aren't working out, we may have to like go back in our evolutionary thought to figure out what the root idea is that's giving false to some faulty thinking, and is spiraling out and not really lining up with what we're doing, and nobody can bring that to our attention but ourselves, and so, well, that's what we find pain for, and we get our asses handed to us. So to wrap this whole story up, is I think that the world is really going through birth pains, like Christ was talking about, and Christ, the universal Christ, is being born out of humanity through us having to refocus on how we prioritize what's important. And this is what God was like, the biggest sin was idolization, because we don't want to get stuck on what's been created, but the process of how that happens. So like in our prioritization process, what I love about the steps is that first we are identifying what our fears are, because that's what our spidey senses are going off, and so our evolutionary system is telling us to look at something. And so it says, okay, well then let's look at it, turn around and look at it. And when we do that, we're empowered with the information to then take action and be responsible for ourselves in our own life. If we take that information and then we use it to control and harm others, that's the birthplace of evil. And I tripped on that for a long time. And, that idea crystallized when I was watching Jordan Peterson. And if those people that are not familiar with his work, I would definitely recommend it. Highly suggest checking it out, especially his biblical series of the Old Testament, because he comes at it from a phenomenology. Such a tough word. Phenomenology. It's a phenomenology. It's a way that you experience life phenomenological. That's what it is. Phenomenological way of experiencing life, and that's the language that that he's used in order to approach what's been written in scripture, and that's what how I came at it from to write the book that I just finished, Piercing the Veil Through the Hall of Mirrors. And I didn't have that terminology. I just ran into Jordan Peterson recently, like not in person, but just his material. And well, the way that I saw it was is that it was speaking of something that was literal, right? But it wasn't literal in the sense that objective reality, what we refer to as objective reality, it's literal in the sense that it was literally describing how certain processes of experience roll out due to cause and effect and universal law. And so, anyways, that's if that interests you or anything that I've been talking about has interested you. My battery's going low, so I gotta cut this short. You can check out the book Piercing the Veil Through the Hall of Mirrors. Just Google it, and I've lowered the cost down as low as I can. It's on Blurb, and yeah, I just wanted to document that because I think it's really cool where we're living at right now. But it's a calling to those that understand some of these dynamics to also step up and really be teachers, because there's a gap in the knowledge that's being transmitted, and so that means part of being responsible is for us to bridge that gap. So anyways, much love to everybody. I hope everybody having great holidays, and I'll catch you on the flip.